taking over. Let's go. It's Ferrall. Coast to coast. Steaks, chicks, stacks. You and I are going to make a lot of money. It's Ferrall, coast to coast. It's a pain-free Friday for us, doling out minutes on the mahogany, waxing it up, 100, 200, a bad seed, a bad, a bad, attitude, bad, say bad, law, bad, do bad, bad vibes. We are live in the Magic City Studios in the Varela Palatial, right across the river and through the woods, where it's snowing ass. So Granny just got out an 8 to the ace of spades hybrid in New York City. The Big Apple. Ooh. People dressed in plastic bags to ready to traffic, some kind of fighting trigger up to do, but I'm up in the come around, party up, rats on the website, the buzz of town. What a mess, tattered my brain, splattered all over Manhattan. I'm so hot for her, I'm so hot for her, I'm so hot for her, she's so cold. Hey, what's gigging? I'm Ferrall, along with your boy Carver High this afternoon. Mafia running it with Luke, I am your holla. A birthday roll call on a end of weeker. Sean Johnson, the USA gymnast, 32. Fleetwood Mac, 33. Thomas Vanek, 40. Mike Komisarek. When is the last time you heard that name? 42. Walter Jones, 50, with Amari Telemaco sauce. Chris Steins, 51. Tyrone Wheatley, 52. Jeff Juden, 53. TJ Matthews, 54. Luke Longley, double nickels. Anthony Young, 58. Ricky Reynolds, 59. Michael Adams, 61. Chris Sabo, 60. Can you believe that? Chris Sabo, 62. You remember him, Reds fans? Otis Anderson, 67. Steve DeBerg, 70. Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday to ya. D'Amico Ryans, we got him talking about facing the Ravens. We got Lamar, your boy. Andrews will not play the tight end. How does that change everything? It's snowing ass in Baltimore today. Should be clear tomorrow, but cold. We welcome our radio affiliates to a pain-free Friday, coast to coast on SportsGrid. It's Sirius XM channel 159 Sports Byline and their radio affiliates. I'm along with Carver High and Ferrall in New York. We're talking about the Texans and Ravens opening the gates here on this show on a Friday. Houston and Baltimore, we'll break it all down. Lamar is the favorite of 7 or more. We got a graphic for you on that as well. Early today, not late, the double shot with Adam Kaplan. He's going to be on in the first hour because he's afraid to drive on streets that are completely black with no snow on them. Your boy, man, once he starts drinking that green tea, he gets nervous. When he sees those perfectly groomed black streets, he doesn't want to drive. Your boy, plus bust a cap in your ass today. He'll give you his spread picks for the divisional semis. Plus, we got the Sharp Report coming up. We got Kyle Shanahan today, Matt LaFleur, talking about facing the Niners. We got teams in the divisional round of like all the graphics you need to see today. Everything Packers, most bet, outright dog. Plus, Dr. Shivago, Dr. David Chow from Sports Injury Central and at Pro Football Doc on X will join us with all of the injuries. And then Davis Lee Roth-Matic, our boy from Fantasy Sports Today, with his picks for the weekend and for tonight. And we always go off with him every single day, so you never know what's going to happen there. Jared Goff talking about the Lions. They showed up big last week, and now they know they can win big games. And we got Baker Mayfield, says the Bucs need to play smart playoff football. We'll break down Tampa and Detroit. Josh Allen wants to finally take down the Chiefs in the playoffs. One of the most bet props is that he'll throw a pick. Chris Jones talking about the Chiefs playing their first road playoff game in the Mahomes era. And the Bills have already ruled out Davis, Rapp, and Benford. We'll talk Kansas City, Buffalo out the yin, and Mahomes' record against the spread as a dog. Plus, we got our boy Rich Sermonello today from the Maxwell Club with another Maxwell Minute. Ohio State hiring Bill O'Brien as their offensive coordinator. All right, like, can I just stop the press here for 1 second? Like, haven't we seen enough of this guy failing? Like, wonder how he keeps getting all these jobs. Honestly, it got worse like when he was a head coach, and then he's been an offensive coordinator everywhere, and all of the teams that he's the OC on suck. Have we not seen that? Wasn't he just the OC of the Patriots and they couldn't score the entire season? And now he's going to work with Ryan Day. What's next? High school football? I mean, honestly, we got public bets, Super Bowl odds. The thing that's most important in life, I've always said, is Carver High's tutties. Cam Hayward of the Steelers is not retiring. He says his goal is to play on both legs for one season. He said he played all season long, Carver High, on one leg. I love this guy. He goes, I'm not quitting. I just played on one leg. I need to play on both legs before I quit. I love that. Bulls beat the Raptors by 6. Cody White with a dagger layup late to seal it. Knicks barely beat the Wizards. They didn't cover. Brunson had 41. Thunder beat the Jazz because that's what they do. T-Wolves beat the Grizz by 15. And Edwards going off. Pacers beat the Kings by 5. And they had absolutely no one in the lineup. There's our theorem again, Carver High. If you have no one in your starting unit playing, bet on them and they'll cover 99% of the time. Tonight's games: San Antonio at Houston, Philly, Orlando, Denver and Boston, Atlanta and Miami, Phoenix and New Orleans, Indies at Portland, and No Sleep Till is at the Lakers, Brooklyn and LA at the Crypt. Morency will join us at 5:25 Eastern from Vancouver. You know, we're going to get into that. South Florida, how about the Bulls last night with the upset on the road at Memphis, 74-73. FAU beat Wichita State. We told you the Shockers would cover, and they did. We gave you Green Bay. They beat Wright State by 7. We gave you Illinois. They beat Michigan at Chrysler. Tonight's games: Georgia Tech, Georgia Tech, I drink my whiskey clear, at Xavier in the Queen City. St. Louis at VCU in Richmond, Indiana and Wisconsin. They're getting 10.5 because they suck. UNLV and Rado State in Fort Collins. I don't know if you knew this or not, but Jesus lives in Fort Collins. And he sells mushrooms. Bruins beat the Avs 5-2. I got the over with 20 seconds left last night. Carver High on a pasta. And it was his Hattie. Sens beat the Habs. Cover 6-2. Tampa over the Wild 7-3. Cover. Flyers beat the Stars 5-1. Cover. Sabres over the Hawks. Cover. Vegas beat the Rangers. Fail. Oilers over Seattle. Cover. Leafs beat the Flames. Fail. We got all of tonight's games, including Carver High's Islanders in Chicago. We got baseball news. You get it all on Coast to Coast, baby.
Blow out the Rams, and in the first half I was like, all right, I got one right here on this one. And then the Lions, what happened, Jacob? They stopped playing.
The Lions offense is more of a complete unit right now because they have a really strong run game, and I know Tampa's run defense is good too, but all they need is David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs to do a little, and that'll open things up for Jared Goff.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
and see what happens with the Lakers. They got to make a move, folks, because if you think this team, that they're going to run out night after night, and is going to win the Western Conference, I can't see it, folks. I don't even know if they even make the final 8 of the playoffs with the way they've been playing. There's got to be major changes made in La La Land, but there isn't a lot of tradable parts.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline, and I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
We'll look at the Heisman Trophy
The Early Line.
and what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
Newswire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterbacks,
Ferrall,
backup quarterbacks.
coast to coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game time
I
decisions.
have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
In-game live.
Just
Prime
took them
time.
yard for a grand slam.
The bottom of the 4th inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
That was
Late
good betting.
Night.
We waited for the 1.5. We got paid.
We did.
Situation. Didn't like the 2.5. Jumped on
There's
it.
no taking weeks off in golf betting, ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Time to turn talk into action. Step 1, fire up your BetMGM Sportsbook. Step 2, make your pick. And Step 3, showtime. Now that hunch has some weight to it. Every play, every game means something more. Because now, you're betting with the king of sportsbooks.
Get the SportsGrid app. It's free on iOS and Android in the Play Store. You can watch the network, listen to the network. It's got odds, in-game odds, stories, videos, highlights. Follow your favorite hosts. You're going to love it, the SportsGrid app. BetMGM's getting ready for Big Game 58. Bet $5 and get 158 instantly. Download the app on iOS or Android or visit BetMGM.com. Sign up, deposit $5 into your new account. Place a wager of at least 5 on standard odds price. Once you place the bet, you're going to get 158 in bonus bets regardless of the outcome of your wager. It's unbelievable. D'Amico Ryans getting ready, Carver High, for a big game tomorrow in the Charm City against Lamar, the MVP of the NFL, certainly, and the Baltimore Ravens. Snowing all day there, and I'm going to be calling that game on in-game live all access with Joe Ranieri tomorrow, 4 to 8 p.m. We're doing Houston versus Baltimore tomorrow, 4 o'clock on SportsGrid and all of our radio affiliates as well, and streaming everywhere on every service known to man.
A big way to start off NFL divisional weekend, Scotty. I like to hear it. You and the mayor of Miami getting things going in what will be a very cold Baltimore late afternoon, early evening. But, hey, I mean, it's January. What do you want? Go play every game in California if you got a problem with the weather. The Texans and the Ravens will start things off, Scotty. Now, they played way back in week number 1, which was the first game, of course, for C.J. Stroud, first game for D'Amico Ryans, etc. A 25-9 win by the Ravens. That was a long time ago, though, and as Ryan says here, teams have changed a lot since then.
Yeah, we continue to take a look at the entire season. I don't put too much emphasis on week 1 because it was so long ago. It seems like it was such a long time ago, and every team kind of grows and evolves there. So you really just take a look at the entire season, right, and see what are they leaning their hats on, what are their favorite things that they like to do, because at this point in the season, everybody's going to do what they do well, right? Whatever has allowed them to make plays, whether it's the explosive plays, right? That's what they're going to hang their hats on. So we have to be in tune to what they're doing well, what Lamar is doing well, and we have to try to find a way to stop them.
Well, it's simple. Good luck throwing against that Baltimore secondary. I think that's the strength of their defense. We all know Warren Sharp told us about for weeks how they can't stop the run, and I don't believe that either. I just do not believe that. I don't believe that a team that wins 13 games has any deficiencies whatsoever. And I think the Texans are going to find that some open door policy to run is going to be available to them. I doubt it. I think Stroud's still going to have to throw the ball. I'm concerned about his lack of options, Mike. He's got Nico. He's got Schultz. He's got the other tight end. So they basically have that and Singletary. They have 4 pieces in that offense available for him to attack. And that's just all there is to it. There's nothing else. Everyone else is injured and not playing.
Yeah, they are very thin at the wide receiver position as it comes into this week. They will have John Mechie out there, of course, who just played this year, missed all of last year, Scotty, obviously. And they'll have Robert Woods out there, but not like having some of the weapons they had earlier in the year, like Tank Dell and others. Let's go to Lamar Jackson and the Ravens now. Best in the NFL this year. But Lamar, Scotty, actually says he didn't even think they've played their best game yet. Here's Lamar.
Yeah, that's the I believe we was, especially against the opponents we had, playoff opponents. And that's the thing about that bye week. I was like, dang, we got a bye week. I believe we was getting into a groove. We was getting more and more dialed in, but it is what it is because, Coach Harbaugh still made us practice like we was preparing for a game, so I believe we'll still be ready.
I think if I had that hairdo, Carver High, as you know, I got it clean and tight this week. It's clean and tight, but if I had that do, I'm looking at leg for sure. I mean, even tonight. I mean, it would be with immediacy that I would get leg. So let me just say this. This guy's so dangerous, and I kind of said this yesterday. This guy's so dangerous, and they're so dangerous. No Andrews, fair enough. But I think he's so dangerous, they're so dangerous, and that secondary is so good that if you're telling me that Michi's going to beat me, I think you're tripping. The only guy that can give them problems at all, even if that, is Nico Collins. I think of the 2 games, the one where there's an opportunity for a cover, it would be this one. I think a lot of people that I'm talking to and Sharps are saying Texans 9.5, Packers 9.5, Buccaneers 6.5. They're all jumping all over it. I think that Baltimore can actually rub them out. I really do. I don't know how they're going to stop Lamar Jackson. I really don't.
I am with you on that. I think if I had to pick one of the 2 teams tomorrow to lay the 9.5 with, I think I'd lean to Baltimore out of the 2 games that are going to happen. Now, there are questions, Scotty, of course, about Lamar. When it comes to the playoffs, he's 1-3 all time. He's never scored more than 20 points in a game. Obviously, this team much different. It's been a few years. The one time that they had a bye in the Lamar era, they lost at home off of it to Tennessee. So that stuff he needs to wash away as well. Come out with a big performance. No Andrews, we mentioned that. The number's still 9.5. The total still at 43.5. I'm kind of leaning under here as well, Scotty. I kind of like this under 43.5.
Yeah, I don't think the snow, this big blizzard we're being hit with that is nothing at all. There's absolutely nothing to it. It's candy ass. That's not going to affect this game at all. Playing in 27 degrees is not going to affect this game at all. You see those numbers that we just put up that they're supposed to win by 7. And then I'm supposed to lose my mind because you're laying 9.5. I need him to win by 10. So I can see where people are going to grab that 9.5 and run with it because of Stroud. But I don't think he's got enough guys to throw it to. I'm still feeling Lamar Jackson here. And, when you're 13-4, I think they're the team that kicks somebody's ass on this weekend's games.
Of course, it's Friday, and that means I always have to give you a bunch of numbers on Friday to kind of make you, rethink some of your decisions, even though you've already made them. In the past 3 years, Lamar Jackson as a favorite of 7 or more points, 1-9 against the spread. What was the one, though, Scotty? The game I just gave you, week 1 this year against the Texans, that 25-9 game. That's the only game he's covered of more than a touchdown in the last 3 years.
That's insane. So that does not bode well for anything I just said. So, but look, I still think that they're going to the Super Bowl. So, for bettors, we have to worry about these little math problems. For Lamar Jackson, he needs to worry about the alphabet, a W, win the game. That's it.
Doesn't
win
matter
the
how
game.
much.
That's all you got to do. It don't matter if he wins by 1 or 20. Win the game and then play at home again next week. And then if you win that, you're going to the Super Bowl.
That's it. The path is very simple for Lamar and the Ravens. All right, Scotty, of course, we're going to go through all the rest of the games for this weekend. You're going to have Adam Kaplan next. The early slot for Adam Kaplan and bust a cap in yo ass this week. Get him in the first hour to get things cooking. So later on, we'll go through the rest of the games. Green Bay, San Francisco, the Lions and the Bucks, and of course, Bills, Chiefs, the late game on Sunday. I'll give you sound and notes from all those games later.
And remember this, you just showed me that he's 1-9 against the spread. Never beats anyone when it's more than 7. So everyone will think it's automatic that they're not going to cover. They'll win by 15.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
They were best friends. Like Siakam's best friend on the team was Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher's best friend on the team was Pascal Siakam. They're not American, right? So there's different cliques in the NBA, and they were very, very tight. So Chris Boucher, I got rattled seeing Chris Boucher and thinking about the memories. But Raptors responded.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event. The atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Adam Kaplan is our NFL insiders. Our sources have seen Kaplan today snow blowing his driveway in Philadelphia so that he could make it to his speaking engagement in time. It appears as though he'll be able to do that. He was out snow blowing, and reports say that he was in a pair of boxers and large snow boots and nothing else. And let me read what it says here. And he had a giant cigar in his mouth and a cup of green tea going. I don't know what that means, but anyway, he's here for a double shot early on a Friday, throwing off our viewers who are used to him coming on in the 5 Eastern hour. They're going to be very upset with me, and I will push it off on Adam and blame him 100% entirely, and then let the fallout begin. All right, Adam. Good luck today with your slippery, snowy Philly weather.
Yeah.
And it's the same down in Baltimore, a lot of snow at the bank. But let's start with your Eagles. I just asked you off camera, is Sirianni safe?
Yeah, and that is really the subject here in Philadelphia all week. It's dominated all sports talk shows in both stations we have here. So here's what's happening. Owner Jeffrey Lurie, GM Howie Roseman, and others are meeting with Nick Sirianni today. And this is their typical year-end meeting, but the difference is this, and it's the same one that Doug Peterson faced after the 2020 season, which was largely disappointing. Sirianni has got to show Jeffrey Lurie that he's got a good plan to fix everything and correct everything that was a problem this past season, where not only did they lose the final 6 out of 7 games, including the game against the Buccaneers, the game against the Buccaneers was not competitive. And he's going to have to not only answer why, he's going to have to answer to what can he do to change it, to make sure this doesn't happen again. Now, Doug Peterson, 3 years ago, he had a series of meetings. He actually had 2. The first one did not go well, where Peterson and Lurie talked about coaching changes on Peterson's staff, and they could not agree on them. After the second meeting, Peterson was fired. The hope here is that Sirianni understands that things have to change. There are going to have to be some changes on offense and defense with his staff, and the owner's got to okay that. So as I understand it, he's been working on it with GM Howie Roseman and others of the front office, and they're trying to get this thing straightened out. But Ferrall, you know this town, okay? You know, you and I have talked about how good this team has been for years. But when you have a regression and a crash and burn like the Eagles did in the second half, you're not keeping your job unless you've got a great solution. And that solution is to make some changes on his staff, to get Jalen Hurts, who regressed this season, Ferrall. That's the thing that not enough people talk about. Hurts was magnificent, 22, regressed. And they've got to get him back on track. They got to get the offense back to where it was last year. It's going to be hard, but they've got to get at least close to. And the defense was not competitive. It was an absolute embarrassment. Remember, they changed play callers. They went from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia, and they got worse. If at all possible, it was. They were worse, and they got to fix everything.
Yeah, I think Matt Patricia's gone, and his stock is at an all-time low. We saw him coach in Detroit, fail, and then we saw this hack job that he pulled off. I think he's out the window, certainly. Now, let me ask you this question. So I've lived there. I've worked there. I've been on YSP, WHIP. I've been on all of them. They had 2 whips at one point. I was on one of them, and they had the FM and the AM. I can't keep track of all of them. And then they got the Fanatic with my boy Kincaid. So what are they saying about, like, comparing it to Peterson? Because one guy won a Super Bowl, and they fired him. And then this guy hasn't won jack except a bunch of regular season games, but he's made the playoffs every year he's been there. But the colossal failure, I understand the colossal failure, but what are the fans in Philly saying on the radio about, well, they fired this guy and he won him a Super Bowl? If you can get fired after winning a Super Bowl that quickly, how does this guy keep his job?
A couple things. Peterson was fired 3 years after they won the Super Bowl. Where this guy,
so what?
Sirianni, hey, look, it crashed and burned, and his staff regressed. He lost some good coaches over the years, and things regressed. Carson Wentz in particular regressed. So the talk in sports radio is, it seems like more want Sirianni gone than staying, because they're so angry. Because, Ferrall, you know this as being a fan and watching sports your whole life. We all do. You remember what you saw last. That embarrassment against Tampa Bay, the owner saw, he was there. He actually walked downstairs before the game was over to get to the locker room. This was an embarrassment of epic proportions. No one saw this team being this bad. Yes, the roster lost 7 starters from last season, but to crash and burn like they did is unacceptable. And the fans, again, they remember what they saw last. And you're right, you know this market, they're pretty angry. But see, what happens in this market is, we know a lot of markets are like this. They get unreasonable. They want everybody fired. Typically, they want the owner to sell the team. They want the head coach fired. They want the GM fired. Here, they just want the head coach to suffer for this because they can't understand why he lost his touch. Now, what I'm told, the players still had the buy-in, but they did not buy in the defense with Patricia because he changed a lot, and that was a major mistake because the way he's explained to me, Ferrall, is when you change a coordinator in season, you can't change your scheme. You take the playbook and you can call it different plays from the playbook, but you can't change your scheme, and Patricia changed too much, and the players clearly didn't buy in.
What is the difference between McCarthy and how they failed and got their ass beat and how Sirianni failed and how they got their ass beat?
No, I think it's comparable. The difference is McCarthy at least won a Super Bowl with Green Bay, and he's been a head coach longer. Now, Sirianni's got more time left on his contract. McCarthy's contract is up after this coming season. He signed a 5-year deal, but I think that's actually a fair point. That one, what's interesting is where this one, there was no expectation Sirianni would be fired. It strictly comes down to, does the owner approve of the changes or not? Where McCarthy, now he may make some changes, but the difference was that the expectation was they would go farther, and then when people around the league saw it, based on how they crashed and burned and how they were an embarrassment at home. Okay, this was because when you look at it, Scott, the implosion for the Cowboys, look, you saw some inconsistency, but this blowout at home, nobody saw. I mean, a number 7 seed comes into Big D and absolutely smokes them on both sides of the football. That's why most reasonable people thought Jerry would have enough, but Jerry, as we said on yesterday's show, is overly patient. He's too impatient. He's actually too patient, not impatient enough. But right now, McCarthy's going to coach on last year of his deal. And by the way, that's very rare. You don't see that much in the National Football League.
So what about the Tomlin situation? He's staying, and I don't think Art Rooney Jr. wants any part of that, like firing Tomlin. And Tomlin made his mind up. He's not going anywhere, but he's got to make some changes too.
He does. No. So what was interesting was, talking to a team source, no one thought he was out. It's just that he was so abrupt with the media because you have to remember, they lost on the road. Through all that, the game was moved. We know that to Monday. And Tomlin was upset. And right after the game, they asked him about his contract. Now, Mike did say, listen, you got to understand. He did explain this week in his season-ending press conference why he reacted and walked out before he answered it. And look, he acknowledged that he expects to get this done. His contract, he heads into 24 on the final year of his deal. He expects that to be taken care of with, you mentioned Art Rooney, the second. And the bottom line is he's got a good relationship with ownership of not having a losing season in 18 seasons. But they haven't won a playoff game since 16. That is a concern. That's something that they're going to have to take a look at. But, the bottom line is when you look at this situation, it's all about the offensive coordinator. By the way, as we talked about on SportsGrid weeks ago, Kenny Pickett is the starter heading into the offseason. But Tomlin did say, this is interesting, Pickett's going to have competition, and he'd like to have Mason Rudolph back. Now, he didn't say he would be the only competition, but Kenny Pickett's got to play better. But what they have to do is coach him better. They got to get an experienced play caller. And another thing Tomlin said is he wants someone who's called plays in the National Football League. And again, he's looking outside the organization, which is interesting. He's not looking inwards, which is what he did before.
What's your reaction to the Raiders just now giving Antonio Pierce the job?
Yeah, and look, that's the way this thing was headed. That's why they didn't go to Harbaugh. And look, the players loved him. The issue is now does Champ Kelly, the interim GM, become the general manager? I worked with Antonio at ESPN, hard-nosed guy. Players respond to him. But the key is here, because they don't have a quarterback, they've got to get a qualified offense coordinator. I'm very interested to see who his staff is going to be. Because, it's one thing, and Patrick Graham, by the way, the defense coordinator, was absolutely phenomenal. Certainly one of the best jobs of coaching when you look at the talent that he had to work with. But it's all about getting the offense straightened out here. And they don't have a quarterback. They got to fortify the offensive line. They've got a lot of work to do with their front office. But Pierce is a guy who did a great job. Now he's got to prove he can do it over a series of years here. But again, it's going to be getting the GM and getting a quarterback. That's the thing about that job. And by the way, talking to some coaching agents, that was not probably the best job that was out there. If you looked at the 8 openings, but it was one that was open and one that's got defensive talent, but they don't have a quarterback, and that's why some people complain about it.
All right, break down the Texans and Ravens in the Charm City tomorrow.
Yeah, and that thing is interesting. I heard you and Carver talking about it. See, here's the thing when we talk about Lamar Jackson. Yes, his playoff record was not great. Greg Roman was a run game guy. Todd Monken could do everything. He's also interviewed for the Chargers head coaching job. They've got a great relationship. He puts a lot on Lamar. Their pass target group is much better than it was last year. They're deeper. Mark Andrews is not expected to be activated with coming off the bad ankle injury. He's been out 9 weeks. Conditioning was the issue. But Isaiah Likely's been great at tight end. He's a pretty good athlete. I don't worry about that. They're not going to have Marlon Humphrey. That does concern me. By the way, he didn't play in week 1 when they beat the Texans. But look, he's got to get over the hump here and play much better in the playoffs. We're talking more about this in the second segment, but I'm certainly believing Lamar in that he could bounce back in these playoffs.
Well, I got to tell you, the thing that we were talking about that I'm concerned about is Stroud, who he's throwing to. I mean, the Ravens secondary is badass, and I don't think they're going to let Nico Collins just go off. And I'm not buying Michi. I'm not buying the fact he basically has Schultz and Collins to throw the ball to. That's it. We got more with Adam coming up, a double shot.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, he's a little bit more over money, but he's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
They were best friends. Like Siakam's best friend on the team was Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher's best friend on the team was Pascal Siakam. They're not American, right? So there's different cliques in the NBA, and they were very, very tight. So Chris Boucher, I got rattled seeing Chris Boucher and thinking about the memories. But Raptors responded.
Sports Rage Late Night. Only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event. The atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Adam Kaplan, our NFL insider, has been arguing with me in the break about nepotism. It's unbelievable. I'm just trying to get him to his speech tonight at the Eskin Sports Broadcasting Dinner and Sportscasting Camp in Philadelphia. And he's got to get there early. And then I said, oh boy, that guy went home, family, all in the family. And then he's like, oh, you got a problem with Philadelphia families, bro? No, just crime families, Adam. That's all I care about here in New York is crime families. All right. I have to ask you before I get fired that the Texans have no one to throw the ball to. I'm sorry. Nico Collins, Schultz, that's it. I'm not buying your Mechie. I'm not buying Jordan. I'm not buying any of that because, first of all, I think the Ravens are the hardest team to throw on in the NFL.
They are. Their scheme is fantastic. Mike McDonald, their young defense coordinator, the reason why he's getting head coaching interviews is everybody sees it. It's not a talent issue. It's the way that he schemes up the defense like a steel trap. They're really hard to score against. They're hard to move it in the air. Also against the run, they're one of the best defenses in the National Football League. Yeah, we'll talk more about the game in a minute, but the bottom line is Baltimore. If you and I did power rankings, you could rank them one or two of all the teams that are remaining, and they're a tough game to they're a tough game to play at in Charm City because the fans feed off of it. And again, Lamar's going to play well in this game. I'm telling you.
So as far as the Ravens, they lose Andrews, but his backup, like the guy that they have going to fill the gap, I mean, he's as good as Andrews, if not better now. This guy's a stud.
Isaiah Likely from Coastal Carolina, big-time athlete, did a good job last year, was fantastic in the regular season. Great for fantasy if you had him. And then, the thing there is Charlie Collar's his backup. Remember, with Greg Roman, they were playing a lot of 2 and some 3 tight ends. So they have that ability. They could split out Likely out wide. They could play him in the slot. They're really good there. Yeah, they're absolutely fantastic at tight end. I don't look, you'd love to have Mark Andrews and makes them better, but you're right. They've not missed a beat without him with Isaiah Likely, 100%.
All right, let's talk about the game out in Santa Clara tomorrow night, Packers and Niners. All I hear about is, A.J. Dillon's thumb. I don't give a rat's ass about A.J. Dillon if I got Aaron Jones scoring 3 touchdowns last week. Give him the ball. I mean, what do I care about his thumb?
Yeah, it was awesome. It's not his thumb. It's actually his neck. He's got to get cleared medically. He practiced some yesterday for the first time in 2 weeks. He missed 5 straight practices, but he has to get cleared medically to take contact on the neck. If he does, see, I agree with you. Look, Aaron Jones was awesome last week. He's actually looked awesome coming back from his knee and ankle injuries. The issue is if they could get a lead, if they can, in the fourth quarter, that's when you want to pound the rock with a bigger back like Dillon, who's fantastic. So to me, getting Dillon back potentially would be huge because I'll tell you this much. Watching that game, when Jones left the game, when they went with the other backs, boy, just time stopped. They could not move the football on the ground at all. Jones has got that juice, and Dillon's got the power. That's a great combination. Now, for the Niners, the only injury they're worried about talking to them is Drake Greenlaw, their starting weak side linebacker, who's absolutely terrific. He's got this lingering Achilles issue. They're pretty optimistic that he can go. CMC, I'm told, looked really good in practice, coming back from his right calf strain, which is grade 1. He's fine. He's good to go. I'm not worried about the rust. I know people keep bringing that up, being basically the starter's been rested mostly for 3 weeks. I know it's hard to get the timing back, but I'm not worried about it. From what I understand, they simulate game conditions pretty well there. Now, the one issue is it's going to rain tomorrow. That the latest forecast, and it really hasn't changed. But see, we've learned this season with rain, it's only a factor really when it's windy, and the wind is not going to be very much there in Santa Clara, and I'm not really worried about that for a game, though. And how about the over-under total being 50.5, though? That is pretty high.
I got to tell you, what I would be worried about if I were San Francisco is the fact that I think the Packers are the hottest team in the playoffs. I think their quarterback's the hottest quarterback in the playoffs all of a sudden. And what they did to Dallas, I hope they're watching the film because they came out like a rattlesnake and just bit with venom, with immediacy. They got the ball and they struck. Then they struck again. Then they struck again, and the game was over. All right, let's move to Tampa and Detroit at Ford Field on Sunday. By the way, I'll be doing in-game live with the mayor, Joe Ranieri, tomorrow for the Texans-Ravens game. Sunday with Morency, I'm doing this game. Tampa and the Lions will be live from 3 to 6:30 on in-game live. Break it down for us, Adam.
Yeah, so, Tampa, they just were not impressive. I've talked to people who've really watched that tape. They're an okay team. They're explosive at offense. But if you look at the first matchup, and I know it was week 6, but Tampa was at home, and they got housed by Detroit. Detroit moved the ball. Their pass target group was great. They moved the ball downfield. Goff was amazing in that game. They were pretty aggressive throwing the football. They led the entire game, never trailed. And they were missing 4 starters in that game, still smoked them. Now, this game's at home. You saw that game last week. Home field does matter in games like this. Now, injury-wise, Shaq Barrett, one of their starting outside linebackers, got an ankle injury. He didn't really do much this week. That's going to be a concern. Anthony Nelson, who had a great pressure against Jalen Hurts in the Monday night win against the Eagles, he would start. Anthony Nelson's been with them for 5 years, more of a sub-package rusher. Now, Tampa Bay, I'll say this about them. They don't have the best offensive line, but they've been together all season. They made 5 changes this season. Tristan Wirfs moved from right tackle to left tackle. He's been great. They don't run the ball all that well, but they throw it well. And you know what's amazing about that game against Philly is they probably would have scored over 50. They had 7 dropped passes in that game against the Eagles, and they absolutely smoked the Eagles. Just think about that. Now, you look at the other side. Lions come into this game really, really healthy. They're very, very confident. One of the most incredible stories is at cornerback, Kindle Vildor. What a name, right? Sounds like a horror movie actor. Kindle Vildor starting at corner. This guy was cut by the Eagles practice squad, right? They cut him off the Eagles practice squad. He signs to the Lions practice squad for 4 weeks. Gets signed off there in week 14. Over a series of weeks, he becomes a starter. It's been one of the most amazing stories in their run here. They're not very good at corner. That's why in this game being indoors could be high scoring because, quite frankly, neither secondary is playing great football, and both quarterbacks should do pretty well in this game. And you saw last week, the only issue with the Lions was, quite frankly, they kind of bogged down the second half in the red zone. Other than that, they moved the football at will against the Rams secondary. So this is another fun game, and I look forward to hearing you guys talk about this one over the weekend.
So the game everybody's looking forward to the most is clearly the Chiefs and Bills. Some people, just because Pat Mahomes is finally playing a playoff game on the road for the first time in his career. This one's at the Belo in Orchard Park at Highmark. Allen against Mahomes, Chiefs and Bills.
Now, barring something highly unforeseen, the snow will stop on Saturday. They'll be clear on Sunday. As I told you yesterday, and it's not going to change. I'm going to explain why. So last week, we know about the weather. It was bitterly cold, right? There's this fallacy. Oh, you can't throw in the bitterly cold weather. How could they grip the football? They threw the ball 41 times last week. Andy Reid came from Philly, right? Their belief, started by former President Joe Banner and owner Jeffrey Lurie, was in their studying of offenses. You throw the ball early to score, and you run to win, in this case with Isaiah Pacheco. Pacheco, Ferrall, did not play in that first matchup. That did hurt them. They could not run the ball when they needed to save their life. He's back. He's off the injury report with that right shoulder problem. Remember, he had off-season shoulder surgery. He's good to go. They're healthy in this game. I'm not worried. See, people are overdoing this thing. Yes, it's a fact. No road playoff games in 7 years, but it's not like he hasn't shown in the regular season that he could play on the road. Oh, by the way, he's played in big games that weren't at home in the Super Bowl. So I don't worry about that in this game. Again, they're healthiest of the two teams. The Bills are super banged up at linebacker. Benford, one of their starting corners, is not playing. Tre'Davious White's out with that torn Achilles. That does worry me because they're going to come out throwing. I know Andy Reid pretty well. He knows personnel. They're going to be out for blood in that secondary. The Bills have got to bring that pass rush somehow, some way. The Chiefs are not great at offensive tackle. Remember that Super Bowl. Remember, you and I talked about it here on Coast to Coast. Why did they lose that Super Bowl some years ago? Because they couldn't protect Mahomes. That's the thing. You've got to get after it. I know Sean McDermott doesn't like the blitz, but you're going to have to bring it. You got to make Mahomes a little antsy, make a move away from his spot.
It's time for Bust a Cabin Yo Ass, where Adam breaks down his spread picks for the games every week, and we're in the divisional semis. So let's start with Saturday. Houston at Baltimore in the snow at the Bank in the Charm City. Ravens, the top seed, laying 9.5.
Yeah, and look, the weather, Mike, Scott, is going to clear up here. When you look at this ball game, I don't see it being high score. Now, the first game, okay, week 1, okay, that was Stroud's first game. He did turn it over, but it was not a pass. It was actually a fumble. I just think they're going to have trouble scoring. You and I are seeing this the same way. I get it. I understand, when it's more than a touchdown. Lamar Jackson hasn't done very well in the playoffs, but things are different here. New offensive coordinator. I love Stroud. I love this matchup, but I like the Ravens to cover that big number. Usually I don't like that number, but the Texans, they got to act like they're not just happy to be there. They're on the road for this one. I like Baltimore to cover this number.
Green Bay and San Francisco on Fox at 8:15. In Santa Clara, the Niners, the top seed, laying 9.5 against the hot Packers.
Can't wait for this game. I hope the rain is not a factor. Purdy is thrown in the rain before. He had to do it in Philly earlier this season. But I believe in Jordan Love. It's not like he hasn't played in bad weather, of course. He plays in Green Bay, so no better quarterback right now. 23 touchdowns in his last 10 games. Very efficient, very comfortable. Their line, no offensive line is playing better. There were questions about their pass protection this season. You could throw them out. Eric Armstead back at tackle for the Niners. They're pretty healthy for this game, but I like the Packers covering this big number. I'm a believer in Jordan Love, who's now their franchise quarterback. I absolutely love him. Yep, I like the I'll take the number this game.
Yeah, I like it too. I got to be honest with you, so I'm with you there. All right, let's go to Sunday, Pain Day. The game I'm doing, Tampa Bay at Detroit, Ford Field. It was absolutely electric for the Ram game in that facility. Here's Goff and company, the 3 seed, laying 6.5 to Baker Mayfield, who has been lighting it up himself in the air.
Well, here's what's going to happen. Baker's very inconsistent against the blitz. It's going to come. Aaron Glenn will bring it. He knows that. You can beat this offensive line. I like the Lions to cover that number. And they'll roll in the fourth quarter when it really matters. That's when they'll close the game better than they did last week. They almost blew it, but they'll be better. And I look forward to seeing Aaron Glenn blitz. And I love what Jared Goff is doing at quarterback. And again, he smoked them in the first matchup in Tampa.
So Detroit to the NFC Championship. And so you think the Packers cover on Saturday? Do they win? And then if they won, they would play at Detroit in the NFC Championship game? Or do you think the Niners win and don't cover?
Niners win and don't cover.
So they'll go to Santa Clara for the NFC title game. All right. It's Sunday night, 6:30 on CBS and Paramount, Kansas City and Buffalo. The 2-seed Bills laying 3.
I'm worried about the Bills' injuries in the back 7. Like Mahomes to do it his first game on the road to the playoffs. I like them to go in and win outright in what's going to be tight-fisted and a tough game. Yep. I like the Chiefs to get the job done. But I'll be pulling for Carver.
No, you're not. So then they would play in Baltimore. If Baltimore handles the Texans, it would be Baltimore hosting Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. All right, Adam, good luck at the Eskin Sportscasting dinner and camp. Have a nice drive in the ice in Philadelphia. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the games, buddy.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, he's all a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
they were best friends. Like Siakam's best friend on the team was Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher's best friend on the team was Pascal Siakam. They're not American, right? So there's different cliques in the NBA. And they were very, very tight. So Chris Boucher, I got rattled seeing Chris Boucher and thinking about the memories, but Raptors responded.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
And I still hate you forever. Anyway, how about a Bills-Chiefs breakdown from our boy, the Sharp Report, the mad scientist?
I cannot wait for the cat and mouse game between Steve Spagnuolo's defense of the Chiefs and Josh Allen's offense of the Buffalo Bills. This game is going to be one for the ages, and I think it's going to be decided on this side of the ball between these two guys playing a cat and mouse style here. The Chiefs have done a great job of limiting the legs of Josh Allen. Though he runs the ball a lot, he does not have a very high yards per carry average against the Chiefs, particularly over the last couple of years. In the first few meetings, he was having success. They really bottled that up the last couple of meetings. Josh Allen, though, does have a high run rate because the Chiefs play such good defense, especially this year. They like to send creative pressures. They'll blitz him. They'll sometimes get natural pressure as well and drop guys back into coverage. Creates a lot of problems, and that's why Josh Allen has not had a lot of success passing the football, especially to Stephon Diggs in this matchup, especially earlier on this season. I think Diggs might be limited because of the season that L'Jarius Sneed is having this year. He's been playing outstanding coverage, very tight coverage. Refs tend to throw fewer penalties at this round of the playoffs. I think Sneed's going to wrap up Diggs to some extent, especially early in this game. Force Josh Allen to either utilize his legs. What they need to do is focus on the ground game. You can run the football on the Kansas City Chiefs defense, and they're going to have to find a way to get James Cook heavily involved here, both in the run game and in the pass game. I don't see anything wrong with going back to what they did in the prior game, which is 141 combined yards, rush and receive out of James Cook. I think it's got to be a big James Cook game in this one for the Buffalo Bills to have a shot at making the AFC Championship.
There he is, Warren Sharp from Sharp Football Analysis. I thought it was interesting that your boy Cap said that he's on the Chiefs outright and he was rooting for Carver High.
Very nice of him. I can't wait. Very nice of him to do that.
You cannot bet on the Chiefs and root for Carver at the same time. Liar.